Yeah. So, speaking of willpower, right? You mentioned don't try and like stop a behavior, right? It's much more effective to find a replacement.
Right.
So,
So this
what
is the
makes that
idea
so
of
effective? Yeah.
yeah, this is the idea of work with rather than against our momentum. So you know that law about a body at rest remains at rest,
Yeah.
body in
Yeah. Yeah.
motion.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we want to harness that. That's physics.
Uh huh.
um, but usually when we have a behavior that we don't like, there's some reason why we're doing it. It's meeting a need, it's solving a problem. So if we can come up with a different behavior that fits our values more or fits our goals, then it will be easier to transition to that than to just, stop cold turkey and, just, I don't know, tie ourselves up and be mean to
Hmm.
ourselves. So, what
Yeah.
could we do instead that's going to meet the same need or solve the problem better than whatever the old behavior is? That's really useful to be thinking about.
Hmm. Now, when it comes down to finding a replacement, like how do you know what habit you should choose? Because does the habit you choose like have to be somewhat similar to the one that you've been doing before, or can it be something completely different? Like, how do you
Oh,
find a right replacement? You know what I mean?
it really depends on what your goal is. So it's
Goals, yeah.
not, and you have to, with self control, it really requires self knowledge. So what are your temptations? What are your distractions? How can you eliminate those or make them a little bit harder to reach? What are the things that you like doing? How can you pair that with something that's a little unpleasant, with a self reward? When I was doing my dissertation, which was a long time ago,
Hmm.
do you know those Ferrero Rocher little round candies? Those are
Ferraro
so good.
Rocher. If I see a picture, I'll probably see it, but like the name
Yeah.
doesn't, like ring a
Okay.
bell.
I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's got like this crunchy outside and then
Hmm.
gooey inside and a little hazelnut in the middle. So after I put in a good whatever time on the dissertation, I would get one of those. They got me through.
You're treating yourself.
So
You're treating
yeah,
yourself.
so
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't have to be something that would work for somebody else. It's what's going to work for you.
Hmm.
And we can also harness in the motivations that aren't necessarily pretty, but work for us. So again, when I was doing my dissertation, I would say to myself, Eileen, if you don't finish this, you will be Mrs. Moore for the rest of your life. And then because I'm Dr. Kennedy Moore.
Aha. Okay, there
so,
we go. Okay,
so, I
okay.
mean,
So,
is this a pretty motivation? No, but it got me moving. So good enough.
yeah, but
Yeah.
most motivation comes from there, though. Like, many people try and act like, oh, it's all about positive energy, but most people are driven by like some sort of like aggressive energy, right? Because we're humans and like we tend to be quite competitive, right? And like that's what gets that, actual energy. I'm obviously, positive energy is great, but like, if we're talking about competitive energy, it comes from that place, right? I know people don't like to talk about it, but it's a factual statement.
So you, like,
Yeah.
and use that deep self knowledge for what's going to get you moving.
Hmm.
And what, so a lot of times, like one important strategy for self control is how we talk to ourselves. And sometimes people do some really vicious self talk. And I'm against that. You're like, oh, you're a loser. You can't do anything
Yeah.
right. Everybody's going to find out what a fraud you are. I don't like that talk because you wouldn't say that to a friend. So
Hmm.
sometimes people who are perfectionists think that they have to like beat themselves up or they're not going to accomplish anything. And that's not true. That's not what the research shows. Perfectionism actually gets in the way of productivity because it makes it
Hmm.
harder for us to start, to continue, and to finish. And it's so unpleasant. Let's just avoid that. If we can
Hmm.
be more gentle with ourselves, the way we would with a friend, if we can focus on progress, not perfection, that can be really useful. Also, I
Hmm.
think we really, so a lot of times, people have heard the idea of do your best. And I don't think that's that useful because not everything deserves our best effort. And what I think is more useful is to talk about doing a reasonable effort. Sometimes good enough is good enough. Like, so think about, and also if we really care about this, then maybe we need to do like a so-so effort on this other thing. Like there's a
Hmm.
limited time and energy. Where are you going to
Yeah.
put yours? And I think that perfectionism or nothing thing really stands in the way of progress.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it kind of goes back to that concept of long-term consistency will always beat short-term intensity, right? So just having
Exactly.
the right amount of effort and doing it for a long time is much more effective than, as you said, I guess just doing your best because that can definitely lead to burnout, right?
Right.
And exactly. Yeah. So I do want to cover a few of the things that you just spoke about because you covered a lot there, which is really important. But just to go back to, I guess, changing a habit by finding a replacement, would it be okay if I just like name, I guess, two or three examples that people might struggle
Sure.
with and like just
Okay.
to see like what kind of, like replacements that they can find, right? Just so it gives
Okay.
people more clarity. Okay, so for example, let's say if you struggle with alcohol, right? What is a good replacement for that? Because I know this is a major problem for a lot of people.
Right. So there's a lot of things that we can think about here. One is find a different drink. Like if being in the bars or whatever is a big part of your social life, you might want to try say, oh, you're going to do an iced coffee or whatever it is, and only
Hmm.
alcoholics care what you're drinking. So that would be one possibility. If you find that doesn't work, then you may need to change the environment and decide, you know what, the bars are just not a good place for me because it triggers behaviors that I don't fit my goals right now. So maybe you're going to join a kickball club or a running club or a volunteer activity and hang out with people there. Maybe you're going to start dinner parties with your friends where you're more likely to where you make a nice dinner, go around to different people's apartments and do that rather so you're not in the bar. That would be another possibility. And still another possibility is hang out with people who don't get trashed. And that makes it easier for you to make decisions that fit your values.
Hmm. Now, when it comes down to choosing a drink, like, is there a certain criteria that you should be looking for? Because I don't know if, like, for example, choosing water, I'm not sure if that's gonna make much of a difference, right? Like, is there a certain type of drink or type of taste that you should be looking for, just so that you can kind of, I guess, like truly find a replacement and get away from alcohol that's obviously been affecting your life in not
Right.
so positive
I
ways.
think it's you know you. So
Hmm.
if the alcohol feels like a treat, what else would feel like a treat? You're like, oh, I
Okay.
like drinking that.
Yeah.
If it's the sugar you're craving, get a lemonade. I mean, it's really what appeals to you. If it's just having something in your hand, um, then do something like that. Do a Diet Coke or I mean, whatever it is that feels okay to you. I don't think we can figure it out. It's really about you
Individual
using
basis. Yeah.
your self knowledge. Yeah.
Hmm. Got it. Okay. And then you mentioned, obviously, if going to a bar is like a major reason to why you drink, you might want to avoid going to the bar and then go somewhere else, right? That reminds me, like, have you heard of that study of the like U.S. Army vets that were like addicted to heroin in Vietnam, and then when they came back to the U.S., like they didn't have a problem with heroin because they got away from that environment that was, I guess,
Yeah.
somewhat connected to their heroin use. Like, have you heard of that study? Like, that was a
I
really
have.
interesting study. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
another
Mhm.
thing to think about is if you're not ready to go cold turkey, maybe make a rule for yourself about I'm only going to drink one. And
Mhm.
stop there. And tell all your friends, I'm only drinking one. So now you've made a public commitment to it. Or tell the right
Mhm.
friend who's going to be supportive. Um, yeah. So it's just useful to think about. There are a lot of options here. Yeah.
Yeah, so like cutting back slowly and stuff like that. Okay.
For some people, that's the right answer. For some people, that isn't. I can't tell you. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
you
Yeah,
probably know whether you need to go cold turkey or whether just slowing down a bit is going to help.
absolutely. Okay. And then something else now, this might be kind of R-rated, but how about like for porn addiction, right? Because again, that's also a big problem in our modern day as well, right? So like
Yeah.
if people want to get away from that, because like that tends to be something that is somewhat like a drug. Obviously, it's not like heroin or crack, but in a way, like people do find themselves getting really addicted to that. So like if they
Yeah.
wanted to, move away from that, how can they replace that?
So this is not my area of expertise, and I know that there's controversy about is porn addictive?
Yeah.
Is it a compulsion? I think it's at the minimum it's a compulsion.
Hmm.
There was somebody at my husband's company once upon a time who got fired from a really good job because he was looking at porn at work, and
Mm.
it was a tech company, so they sent out a notice every week saying don't be doing
Yeah.
that, and he did
Yeah.
it anyway. So I don't think that was
Mm.
a choice. I think that was minimum a compulsion, maybe addiction. I don't know, not my field. um,
Got it.
like any habit, you want to think about what are the circumstances that are most likely to trigger it. So um, you might want to do something else instead. Like if it's usually in the evening, then can you be somewhere else? Can you, let's say it's in your bedroom, maybe leave the laptop outside of your bedroom, or maybe go out for a run at that
Hmm.
time. Um, Maybe put
Porn
more
blockers.
effort. Yeah, porn blockers is like make it
Hmm.
easy on yourself. We don't have to do it the hard way. Um,
Yeah.
and let's also think about the need. Maybe you need to put more effort into meeting real people
Yeah.
that you'd like to date, and um, yeah. So creating what are your values? What are you aiming for? How is this going to bring you closer or farther from where you want to be in your life? You
Got
could
it.
also
Hmm.
even make a list of why am I doing this, and why do I want to cut back, and you know what matters to you. You know the statement that's going to matter, and like stick it on, above your bed, or inside your laptop, or where somewhere where you're going to see it, and have to read through, make a rule for yourself. I have to read through all the list of 47 reasons why I don't want to do this before I'm allowed to click on anything. And
Yeah.
maybe that's that speed bump that will slow you down a little bit.
Hmm.